I've always been a little hesitant to show my design schemes and templates just because I guess I thought, well, I made these, so I own them, and I don't want you guys to be able to use them or look at them. And, it's kind of occurred to me that the sponsors and teams and actual designers probably would have something to say about that, so I'll give you guys an inside peek at what goes into making all these and what my mysterious templates actually look like. Oh my god, this is what my voice sounds like? When first starting out, it's easiest just to find flats of a design and kind of copy and paste from there, but once you get the hang of Photoshop, there's really no need to wait for other people to do your work. You can make templates and designs on your own. Now, I say this knowing that there's probably easier or better ways to do this. Templates probably with a painting tool from a sim game or something, but this is just the way that I do it, so I'll show you how I do it. An easy way to start out is just to find a full paint scheme of a car online and paste your own stuff over it, paint your own stuff over it. Now the problem you're going to find running into these is that the sort of design template that was used to show the preview for that doesn't necessarily match up with the diecast, and not just in size, but in dimensions. Things can be a little different, or there's hinges or lines or just other things that will prevent you from doing a straight up copy, print, and paste and all that. So the only way you're going to know for sure whether or not things line up and fit is to print them out yourself, cut the various pieces, and here's the roof part, here's the hood part, here's the left side, rear, right side, and line them up to the actual car once you have the physical car in front of you. And of course, there's not going to be one universal kind of template that you can use for this because all the cars are different. The different generations, the different series, the different manufacturers, they're all slightly different. Now, I'm not going to explain how to use Photoshop in this, you're going to have to be on your own for that one. But once you know the tools and strategies for it, you can do anything. But for all of that, you don't have to create everything from scratch. You can copy or paint from photographs, from team driver websites. Team websites are good places. So when you finally gathered up all the numbers, logos, sponsor logos, driver signatures, the lights and grills, I mean, just you can Google them to be honest. Lay them all out over your file and keep it a PSD so you can rearrange and resize every little thing. Always. Don't flatten it until you're rearranging it to print. So this is what a really basic template of mine is going to wind up looking like. It's, like I said, it's basic, there's no color, it's just a white car, so I don't have to have any background behind any of the logos. I gathered up most of the contingencies, I made the arrows and things myself, did trial and error just to make sure that things fit, that the roof was going to fit, that the sides were going to fit on the actual car. It's an old Toyota. And remember, things don't always have to fit perfectly when you print them out. If you have extra space, you can just cut it out, hold the decal up to the car, and if you're working around the wheel wells or something, just cut it out and know in the future that, don't put anything in that space. That's the danger zone. And ideally, you would work through that while you're still in Photoshop, go back and do it, but if it's going to be a lot of hassle, just don't worry about it. But what this means, now that I have everything right, is that for any future design that's going to be on this same car style, I can just paste over this. If there's a different number, I resize it up to the roof number or the side numbers until it fits. You can steal the contingency sponsors for something else. The lights will stay the same. So this kind of turns into a template. And of course, things can be different. Maybe sponsors will be a different size, the numbers smaller, but you'll figure that out once you print it out. And remember, if you have any questions about it, don't print the whole thing. Just if there's a side you're not sure about, print the side out in regular old black and white ink, plain old paper, and just work from there. However, when you're ready to go to the next level, things can be better. Up until a certain point, I'd just been printing out at 100%. Whatever I would make, the size would be what it is. It's 100% for 1/24th scale, and I don't remember. It's easy math. I'm just not doing it at the time. It's somewhere around 40% for 1/64th scale, just easy division. But especially when you print out the 1/64th scale, it's going to start to look a little blurry. And I did some research and found out why. It turned out that it was kind of obvious. For better print resolution and quality, you need more dots per inch, pixels per inch. which isn't just something that you can unfortunately dial up and down when you go to print your decals out. You have to do it in the actual creation of the file, which means things have to be bigger, basically. You have a better quality if you're printing something very big out at 10% than if you're printing something relatively small out at 100%. So now that I knew this, the old templates had to go, and I needed to start making everything bigger. Set out to work, blew everything up, literally I guess, I made everything bigger, and now we have Templates 2.0. Here's kind of a mishmash of Haley and Byron. So let's compare. Zoom in on the old decals, and kind of blurry, and now zoom in on the new decals. Much better. What I'm going to do is I actually write them at the top of the page just in a paintbrush, the actual print sizes that I'm going to need to do. So for 1/24th scale, it's going to be at 42%, and for 1/64th scale, it's at 16%, just for these. My end game for the redesign is that I'll have a template for every different kind of body style out there. This is what I'm going to use as the Ford body style for both the Cup cars and ARCA and K&N, because they both go on the same thing when you're making them in diecast. And this was a Michael Lyra car that had a very specific design on it that needed to actually fit onto the car. It wasn't just, well, I'll paste the number here, I'll paste the number here. It was an actual paint scheme. So I had to do some wrapping, and I figured out through some trial and error that the flat part on the sides of the body would fit just right. Now the quarter panels, obviously they're kind of messy, so I know that I'm going to have to cut around those every time. I was just too lazy to ever get around to actually doing it. But what this meant was having it done for any Ford I was going to build in the future, I could build off of it from here. Start by just putting a new number over the old number, and then work from there, deleting the background when I have to. And the big blue flat areas of space that you see around some of the decals, that's just safety space. That's I've calculated that that's going to be about the color of the paint around it, so I don't have to necessarily trim right on top of everything if there's a little bit of bleed over in between letters or in between numbers. It's going to be okay. It's just space for me to work with. And what happens when it's time to print is that you can erase or crop out as much of that space as you can to kind of create a puzzle on the page to get as much printed out at one time as you can, which saves you paper in the end. Now here's some examples. Black car, John West Townley. I don't need all the black. If there's some dead space, just get rid of it, smash everything together, save me some paper, and save me some ink while I'm at it, so I'm not just filling in lots of space with nothing. Same thing here, Kyle Weatherman. As you can see, printing at 36% on the little scale thing on the right, but just assembling as much as I can into as small a space as I can. And then when you know that you're printing out at 1/64th scale, and this is going to be at like 14% or something, make the page plenty wide, because you're not going to take up very much room on an actual sheet of paper if you're printing that small. So just stretch everything out into a thin line and print from there. Just remember, don't try doing it for a big size. Now, something to remember when it comes to building and printing is that despite what it may look like on the page, no two files are necessarily exactly the same. And this can kind of spring up from if you want to just hold an actual car up to the screen, look at it and measure the dimensions out from there. If you print it out, it's not necessarily going to come out exactly as you thought it would, just with dimensions and measurements and all that. And this, you'll notice if you ever, while you're in Photoshop, open up the ruler key and look at two files that might be the same size, dimensions-wise, and you'll see that on one the inches are further apart, and on the other the inches are closer together. I'm not using any fancy terms here, that's just basically what it is. And in my case, I kind of dug myself into a little bit of a hole with that, where I may not have noticed that at first, and it just came to light once I actually started printing things out and wondered, why aren't things measuring up right? So in my world of laziness, it's somehow easier for me to just keep the different files separate than to print stuff out, print stuff out, print stuff out, and make sure that the templates are all the same. So what happens is, here you can see Ryan Priest's Xfinity car from last year. Totally different set of templates for uh, different bodies like the Xfinity series. All the Chevys that come through there will go through this template. So just keep that in mind next time you drag and drop something from one file to the other. Little contingencies or numbers uh, might be bigger in one than the other. Even if it looks the same, you gotta check. And in my case, it just kind of stubbornness led me to this point. And at this point, I've got them all built out, so why not just keep going with it? And as you can see for these, this is pretty much all the decals that I'll need other than the lights, all kind of crammed together into the red space. So it's a pretty easy way to print out. And everything was on that page except for the manufacturer details, which for the Camaros, because I had to do some bulk orders of those, I decided just to make a whole separate second page of them where I could switch out, add, delete background colors, and yeah, that makes things pretty easy. I can just print those out separately, and yeah, they actually switched some things up for 2017, so I had to update all the little bits on the back and the tail lights, but it's all up to date now. So yeah, that's how it's done over here.